Hi, everybody. My name is Wellington Spetic. I'm a faculty here at Anderson School of Management, and this is a recording that I'm putting together as part of our March 26th event coming up about social entrepreneurship and impact investing in New Mexico. And today I have the pleasure to invite Dr. Garima Sharma, a former colleague, a co-author and a friend, and an expert in social entrepreneurship. So, Garima, welcome. Thanks for doing this.
Thank you for having me, Wellington. It is so exciting to be here today and talk to you.
Awesome. And today you're calling from Georgia State, or you've been in Georgia State University now for a year, and we started this project together here in New Mexico. And later on in this interview, we'll talk a little bit about that project and how it relates to New Mexico. So, but now I'd like just to begin with some general questions. And, the name is popular, it's becoming popular, but if you could tell us, what's a social enterprise?
Yeah, gladly. My research, my teaching is very much around the concept of social enterprise. And like you said, the phrase is increasingly gaining popularity, but also it comes with a really wide interpretation of what social entrepreneurship means, which I think is fine because it's generative. You make a big tent so people can actually join you and make a difference. So if I were to explain simply what social enterprise is, these are enterprises who are using the power of business for creating social impact. So again, very broad definition, but the idea is that these enterprises are focused on specific issues like homelessness, poverty, climate change, and the birth or the growth of these enterprises really comes from the fact that such wicked problems like poverty and homelessness cannot really simply be addressed by the government or the public sector that we have traditionally thought is the prerogative of these sectors to address these issues. So business is increasingly found to be an important tool for making change, and these social enterprises are drawing on that tool to create positive change. And like I said, there is a significant variety in what are social enterprises. And I feel that's also gives it the generativity. So if you imagine like a spectrum that stretches from an organization being 100% nonprofit to 100% for-profit business, social enterprises can lie sort of somewhere, anywhere, in a way on that spectrum. So what, I teach social enterprise entrepreneurship, and my students sort of conceive of social enterprises, and I see all variety on that spectrum. And that variety can stem from what impact they want to achieve, what do they do with the profits that they make, how do they really organize in terms of the structure, the legal structure, and so on and so forth. So I'll give you two quick examples. So Greyston Bakery is a very popular example, often used in the conversation on social enterprises. And so what they've done is they've created a hybrid organizational structure. So they're a for-profit, a part of their organization employs previously incarcerated people in their bakery, and then they sell that stuff and make money. But they also have a nonprofit arm where they engage with education and awareness and skill training. So again, they're creating impact both ways, and together they sort of, creating larger impact through this hybrid structure. So Grameen Bank in Bangladesh is another example of, the founder, Professor Mohammed Yunus, calls it a social business, the idea being that whatever money they generate is sort of invested back into the business. Again, huge variety of what social entrepreneurship is, but the bottom line, the crux is that, you're using the power of business for creating social impact.
Nice, very nice. Yeah, that connection there between being profitable and having a purpose. I think that's where it attracts a lot of attention, and this is the beauty of it. So, a bit more specific now in terms of your research, and how have you studied, and how have you researched social enterprise in your career?
Yeah, so as you know, as a fellow researcher, we have to craft a very narrow lens of how we understand this big phenomena. So what I'm looking at is specifically what's called the tensions of purpose and profit. Sometimes they also call this contradictory goals of social and commercial impact. So I look at social enterprises from that lens of tensions. And given what I just described about social enterprises, they are really this bustling source of tensions as they incorporate both goals, And what I specifically look for when I study social enterprises is the how, or the practices of how these organizations really navigate these tensions. And if I were to sort of summarize the key insight, it's really the successful social enterprises do not try to solve or resolve or remove the tension. They accept that the tension is part of their fabric, part of being a social enterprise. And then their work then becomes what practices can they organize in order to navigate that tension. So that is primarily what my research agenda has been.
Very nice. Yeah, that seems to be the challenge, right? How you can see this not as a trade-off, but as two things that many times you see as not compatible, but working together despite of the tensions. Yeah, thank you very much. So going back a little bit to our event now on March 26th, just like to get your take, and if you could share a little bit about the current research that we are doing, and how we are looking at social enterprise in New Mexico, which is going to be presented, some of our results we presented in the March 26th event.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, this project started when I was still at University of New Mexico. So I'm very fortunate to stay involved in this project and continue to work with you and our other colleagues at UNM. So, the idea of this project really came about by this observation of, I am not from New Mexico, but when I lived there, there is something really salient about that place in the sense that people see New Mexico as unique, they're aware of place, which is different from, other cities and countries that I've lived in. So that struck me as really interesting in the sense that how much the idea or the place of New Mexico is part of the narrative. So, combining that with this interest in social entrepreneurship, we quickly realized that the issues that social entrepreneurs are interested in, like homelessness, like poverty, they're really place-based issues. So if I'm homeless, it's because of lack of affordable housing in my city, because of all the systemic issues that are unique to my place. But we're really not talking about social entrepreneurship in that way. Place really not shows up. Social entrepreneurship is really talked about as this global standardized phenomena. So we really wanted to understand. We started with this broad question of how does place show up in social entrepreneurship. And so what we did is we interviewed about 40 social entrepreneurs and what we're calling ecosystem builders in New Mexico. Again, great context to ask this question. And in addition to those interviews, we also collected mission statements and other text from the website of these interviewees, trying to understand their business model of their social enterprise and their focus on designing this business model. And so we're still analyzing the data and so excited to present it, a sneak peek of it in the event that's coming up. But our preliminary analysis shows two really interesting things that I'm going to quickly talk about. One is this idea of place-based tensions. So what does that mean? That means that, a place is really not a characteristics of a place or identity of a place or what a place is not monolithic. a lot of people recognize both the good and the bad, or the beautiful and the ugly in a place. And so that's what we're calling place-based tensions. And so for an example would be somebody describing New Mexico as both resourceful in terms of its natural beauty, in terms of what's available, in terms of relationships, and also lacking resources in terms of maybe capital and investor attention and so on and so forth. So we find that we clearly see a difference in our data in terms of how much the place-based tension shows up, and whether somebody's really just looking at the contradiction between the tension, saying New Mexico is both this and that, but also seeing the interdependence between them, saying that we are, we can be resourceful because we have faced these resourcelessness. So really seeing both contradiction and tension. So there's a difference between how that shows up in the data. What we're trying to do right now is really connect that idea of place-based tension to how these entrepreneurs design their social enterprises to create impact. And we are seeing some connections between that tension and how place shows up in impact. So what does that mean in terms of how place shows up in impact is that when I am thinking about impact, or when I'm creating impact, do I consider place? Is New Mexico front and center for me when I think about social impact? So a quick example would be, am I talking about hiring local people, local employees, local people, or is my hiring practices specifically designed for what local means for New Mexico in terms of education, training, and so on and so forth? So that's what we're playing with, sort of creating this line of sight between how I see the place-based tension as an entrepreneur and how that is related to whether place shows up in my understanding of impact or not.
Fascinating. So we have a lot to expect and look forward to the event on March 26th. So that's what I have today, Garima. Thank you very much for stopping by and educating us on these topics. And for sure, we'll have a link here in this video about how to register. Take a look at our agenda. And we are looking forward to seeing everybody there to learn more about social entrepreneurship and impact investing too, which is the other theme of the event. Yeah. Garima, thank you very much. Any final thoughts?
Well, no, just a quick thank you to you for organizing this event. I've heard nothing but amazing things about it, and asking me to weigh in. I think it'll be a great opportunity to really dig into all the amazing potential that is available in New Mexico to really use business as a force for good. So I'm very excited.
Awesome. Yeah, we're looking forward to it too. All right. Thanks, Garima, and I'll see you March 26th. Take care.